We're tracking these reports of absolute chaos and infighting in the Trump White House. There is a lot of concern about the basically seemingly accurate reporting in the New York Times about the Epstein crisis inside the White House, but Donald Trump pushing back on that because I guess he's mad that the story is public. Washington also waking up to this type of headline: knives are out inside an insular and isolated White House. Political reporting on the angry and grievance-driven Trump White House mood these days, with one ally saying knives are out in some capacity. People are stabbing people like it's chaos, the chaos creeping back. Another MAGA political operative quoted as saying Trump is pissed, and people are not recognizing the level of pissed that he is. It all comes back to Epstein, a story that we've reported and told you they have not been able to stem, including high-profile testimony this week and that New York Times bombshell, which is part of a forthcoming book that probably has more details because this was just an excerpt. The Times reporting the rather unusual, somewhat embarrassing detail that they misused the National Security Situation Room to spin Epstein. The response here, instead of shoot the messenger, it's find the leaker, a reported massive leak probe into who might have been talking to those journalists. You'll note, though, that a leak probe implies there are real people who said real things to the journalists. In other words, that the story was basically true, right? They want to find their own aides who are still in the White House who talk to the reporters. Meanwhile, the inflation numbers that are coming in show that the inability to stem or end the ceasefire and the war in Iran continues to catch up with America and Trump at home. Price gains have wiped out the pay increases that Americans have even gotten over the past year on average. So this is some of that economic math, but the bottom line is if you adjust for inflation, your hourly earnings, all Americans' hourly earnings, are actually lower. They've effectively fallen because of Trump's inflation. Now, Trump says he loves the inflation. I guess that's something he does not have in common with the American worker. And there are other statements which, from someone who has focused on PR, who is known to be a communicator, have raised wider questions about why any politician, including the incumbent president, would say that he doesn't ever even think about your financial situation, or that he doesn't care about what you do and vote in the upcoming midterms, or, as mentioned, that he loves inflation.
Mr. President, to what extent are Americans' financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody.
I don't care about the midterms.
Are you concerned, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning? Could that be a
No, I love it. The numbers were great. You know what I really love? I love the inflation.
He loves it. Meanwhile, in private, there are oil executives warning the White House that the gas price problem is only going to get worse. The Washington Post reporting on what were essentially private warnings. Americans paying at the pump. Federal workers, meanwhile, are preparing to host the UFC ring there at the White House. We have new footage. We should mention Trump also owns stock in the company behind this fight. Critics questioning whether this is part of the ongoing grift and that it doesn't end there, as the Trump family is trying to make money by selling a $12,000 commemorative gold coin that connects with this unusual fight that Donald Trump wants to hold at the White House, which is a type of focus and energy going to this instead of, governing the war, high prices. Jimmy Kimmel having a field day.
The Trump family is offering a special commemorative coin with his head on it for this UFC event for the low, low price of only $11,999.99. You can see, though, it's a beautiful coin. Julius UF Caesar is pictured.
If you forget the last many years of politics, if you go back to, say, 2014, 2013, before Trump was even really floating this run, it's like the Simpsons episode that imagined it, or any other cartoon. The fact that it's really kind of the most absurd version of Donald Trump, hawking the coins and the products and the wrestling and the reality TV gambits. The type of thing that you wouldn't think he would need to do. He's in the second term. He has no more elections to run. He could try to, at times, focus on other things. But this is who he is. He was not going to change. He has shown America who he is. And so that's the weird moment we're in, living through a summer where people are actually having to cancel, reschedule, change their weekly plans, the vacation they were going to drive to the lake for because gas is too expensive. And whatever gains, as I mentioned, they got in hourly wages have been wiped out by Trump inflation, including the gas crunch that is only a direct product of a war that he started that nobody seemed to want in America, and that he certainly didn't run on, and he certainly didn't get Congress to clear. And so against the backdrop of these serious problems, foreign and domestic, you have Trump selling coins and doing these reality TV ploys. And you might say, okay, well, the news is reporting on that, but, you know, that's who he is and that's how he got elected and that's his appeal. Well, it's not his appeal anymore. He has historically low second-term approval ratings. He is at a low enough approval that statistically a heck of a lot of people who have voted for him in the past now disapprove of him. So maybe the shtick and the campaign moves and the antics that did get attention in our political attention economy during campaign season aren't actually turning out in a way that the American public wants. And that's before you even get to the aging president's physical stamina. Now, this is the type of story we reported on regarding the last president, who happened to be a Democrat, and this president, who happens to be a Republican. What they have in common is what has become a big kind of ongoing issue in sclerotic Washington, which is a lot of people who are way past retirement age, continuing to do their jobs or do them as best they can. Trump, again, being seen in what looks like a public nap, and not at a kind of quiet end-of-the-night kind of event. This was actually at the loud, action-packed Knicks-Spurs game. Today, there is reporting that he saw 22 different medical specialists as part of his last checkup. Now, if you have good health care, and everybody would want the president to have, of course, the best there is, you can see as many specialists as you want. The question is whether this relates to other issues and a lack of transparency in the White House. There are questions from outside physicians who said they were skeptical of the disclosures about his health. And remember, when you are president, you give up some of that personal health security that most Americans have. In other words, it's not your employer's business or anyone's business if you don't want to share. But that's not the case with the president. There is a long and important standard of the president and the White House sharing the medical exams and other information because it is a national security issue and a matter of public import. If you ask the public, though, well, Americans are concerned that he may no longer be physically and mentally fit enough for the job. And that is a backdrop that might remind you of why Biden ultimately exited the race, because those kind of problems, those numbers are very hard to reverse. And while Donald Trump isn't running for office, his party, of course, is up in the midterms, and Republicans are watching their odds get worse. Larry Sabato, who's a renowned elections forecaster, he sees Republicans struggling and Democrats surging in several Senate races. Take it all together, and what do you have here? A kind of a doomsday of problems. We didn't have to be at war. Trump started the war. So we didn't have to have a gas crunch. The war caused that. We didn't have to have an Epstein crisis that lasted this long in America. If Donald Trump had done just what he said he would do and immediately released the files, it wouldn't have taken this long. And ironically, it may redound against his benefit and hurt the Republicans that here deep into the summer, we're still looking at that issue, the reporting, him hunting the Epstein leaker, more witnesses going before Congress because Trump's DOJ did not do the investigations that they should have and said they would. And you don't have to take the news's word for it. You can get that take from Megyn and Tucker and the right-wing podcasts. So all of this has congealed into a problem for the Republicans going into the midterms and potentially for Donald Trump as he looks at a nation that increasingly sees him as unfit and off the path Americans want.
Donald Trump is facing fresh criticism after defending his decision to appoint Bill Pei as acting director of national intelligence. In a recent interview, Trump praised Pei as a loyal ally and suggested that he could uncover information related to what Trump continues to call rigged elections. However, critics argue that Pei has little to no experience in intelligence or national security. raising serious concerns about these qualifications for one of the country's most important security positions. The controversy comes at a time when the United States is preparing for major events, including the 2026 FIFA World Cup and nationwide celebrations surrounding America's 250th anniversary. Security experts warn that these events will create massive challenges for law enforcement and intelligence agencies. Some analysts fear that placing an inexperienced political loyalist in charge of the intelligence community could distract agencies from real threats, including terrorism, cyber attacks, and foreign interference. Former military and national security officials have also been questioned whether political loyalty is being prioritized over expertise. They argue that intelligence agencies should remain focused on protecting Americans rather than investigating political conspiracy theories. Supporters of the administration say that Trump has the right to choose leaders he trusts. Critics, however, believe national security positions could be filled by experienced professionals with a proven background in intelligence operations. As the debate continues in Washington, the appointment has become another flashpoint in the ongoing battle over Trump's leadership and national security policies. Whether Bill Pay ultimately proves his critics wrong remains to be seen. But his appointment is already generating significant controversy and raising new questions about the future direction of America's intelligence community.